All right, well, welcome to On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hutter, and with me, as always, will be
Tanner Brandamari.
And today, we're very excited to have President Lou Civello on episode 1. Lou's been really hitting the ground running as PBA president here since he's been taken over about 15 months ago. And thanks for coming on, Lou.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Lou.
Good to be here with you.
So, for everybody that's watching, the membership, the general public, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, your rise through the police department. How did it all come about?
Sure, yeah. So I've been on the job for 25 years. I started in the NYPD, did a little time in the 106. Shortly before 9/11, I got the job out here in Suffolk County. I was in the Suffolk County Police Academy when 9/11 occurred. And from there, went through the academy. I graduated, went to the 5th Precinct, where I spent the majority of my career. Had a short stint in highway. For the entirety of my career, I worked in patrol, just like the name of the show here. So backbone of the department. Patrol is the ones out there answering the 911 calls when people call for emergencies. So very proud of that, and to have served in this, what I believe is the greatest department in the entire country. And in my tenure in the 5th and there beyond, I became involved in the union movement. Became a PBA delegate, I believe, in 2007 or thereabouts. And I stood with the union movement. It's always been an honor to represent my fellow police officers and advocate for them. Became the 5th Precinct trustee eventually, I think maybe around 2011 or 2012. And from there, I was elected to the 2nd vice president position. And then most recently, I've become the president here at the Suffolk County PBA.
Yeah, it's quite a ride. Now, did you always have a passion for union work? Is this something that you kind of set out to do at the start of your career, or did you just kind of fall into it?
Yeah, I think I've always had a bit of a passion for it. I mean, I always wanted to be a police officer. I had family that were police officers. I grew up with older cousins that worked in the city. And they would come home with their stories, and wanting to arrest the bad guys and help people was always in my blood. But at the same time, especially in my college years, I was a bit of a, I want to fight the man kind of a, so I get the best of both worlds. I get to be the man and fight the man at the same time. It's really been great. I started in the union movement actually as a Teamster. So when I was in college, in order to help pay my way through college, I worked in a moving company, and I bought my book and became a union moving worker. And I would work all over Manhattan, a lot of times in the towers themselves. You'd often move businesses from one floor to another. That was my first taste of the union movement and how union workers collectively get treated better by banding together, by collectively bargaining. And it's something that always inspired me and was close to my heart. So after I became a police officer, which is what I always wanted to do, I always attended PBA meetings. I always found an interest in going to them and, keeping abreast of what was going on. And I think there was always a certain affinity I had for labor and for the union movement. Yeah,
it's one of those things where you grow up wanting to be a cop, wanting to help people, and then it almost seems like natural. I know it did for me. It sounds like it did for you. It seems natural to just want to help your coworkers, want to make life better for everybody around you.
Yes, yeah, especially when you're coming from a place of public service, right? So it's kind of in your blood to want to help other people as a police officer. So to kind of take that to another level and not only help the public, but to help your brother and sister officers truly is a calling. It's something that I've been very blessed to be involved with.
Yeah, and like the way I always looked at it too is if your brother and sister police officers are more comfortable doing their job, they can better serve the community themselves too, because they feel like they have the backing of the union behind them. Here in Suffolk, we have the backing of the local politicians behind us. It makes it easier to go out there and do your job with the right mindset and not worrying about getting jammed up over something silly or some sort of nonsense that's going to be taken out of context.
Yes, we have one of the most complex and challenging jobs that exists, in law enforcement. So to be that patrol officer, to be there in these volatile situations that are unpredictable, to put your life on the line, it's no easy thing. So you do need that support network. You need that union. You need that backing. If you don't, you're a punching bag. And when you look in places in the country where police unions don't exist, well, that's exactly what happens. You see that the pay and the benefits are just miserable. Again, law enforcement is just such a challenging job. The rates of suicide are so much higher than in the general public. You need somebody advocating for you, and not only for pay and benefits, but for working conditions, for mental health. And that's a critical role that we play as union representatives.
It's important to have good leadership and good representation. And I know you're a big believer in that, Lou.
Most certainly, and it's one of the things that we want to cultivate going forward. Both yourselves being young union leaders, it's so important that you cultivate that into the future, that we have the best and brightest, looking at the PBA and the union movement as a career path, to not only serve the public, but to also serve your fellow union member, because you sacrifice a lot as a union representative as well. It's usually not the best thing to do for your career. As you can imagine, management doesn't take the person that is calling them out on some things and say, hey, this is the guy that we want to move ahead. So sometimes it's to your own detriment to stand up and advocate for your fellow officer. But it's a calling, and it is a career path, and it's something that is critically needed. And I know it's appreciated by the membership.
You talk about the way you've progressed through your career within the union and the police department, but the PBA wasn't always structured exactly the way it is today. And we didn't always do all the same things we do today. And you were a major part of building what we do now with a lot of our grassroots movements to try to stay out in front of public safety issues legislatively. You had a big part in that.
Right. Well, I think educating the public has been so important for us. And in the past, we kind of existed in this world where we thought, no, people value police officers. They know we're out there. We wear bulletproof vests, and that's why they'll always support us. Well, even if you just look back on the last couple of years with the whole BLM grift that demonized police officers, nothing could be further from the truth. If you're not active, if you're not engaged, if you're not talking to the public, then the narrative can be defined around you, and it can be misrepresented. And we saw that. We saw police officers demonized. We were blocked from the political process. There was a call not only to defund police, but also to defund police unions and remove us from the equation. Nothing could be more detrimental to the public and to public safety. We really provided that counterbalance to some of the insanity that was out there at the time, where they were looking to replace us with social workers, right? Madness. Yeah. But the only real voices that were standing up to a lot of this stuff and not just jumping on the bandwagon or acquiescing were police unions, right? Places where there were strong police unions, there was some resistance, some pushback, and we were proud to be on the front lines of that. And we are one of the most politically active unions in the country, and I certainly am proud of that. I was part of that coming up as a delegate and as a trustee. I helped build that with help from a lot of other people. But we are the tip of the spear when it comes to union activism and grassroots organizing. We're one of the few unions that will actually go out. We not only support pro-police candidates in forms of an endorsement or writing a campaign check, but we actually go out and volunteer. So we will go door to door. We will talk to the public. We talk to them about how important it is to have candidates that care about public safety, that care about law enforcement, that care about whether or not their kids are safe. And it really is a game changer in terms of the betterment of police officers and increased public safety.
Yeah, and I know at this point, Tanner's really taken that ball and ran with it too. You're running our political action committee. Yeah. And, what lessons have you taken from Lou and the way we built it in the past with Bob Capadonna?
I think that obviously leadership starts from the front, and since I've started, Lou really has been on the ground with us. It's never you go out and do it yourself. It's never just the delegates, never just the members. You're out there alone. Lou has come out several times by himself, even before he was president. Since I've known him, he's always been very involved in what he does. I like to put my face out there, and I think that he talked about informing the public, but I think it's also a big thing to inform our members about what they're working for and what they're working towards. So I think that that's really been something that we've grown on and gotten better at since I've taken over from Bob, and I've gotten a lot of good mentorship from both Lou, Bob, and yourself.
Yeah, and one of the great things about it is a lot of the issues we're walking for and advocating for, it's not just things that benefit us as cops, as working cops or as labor, but also just as Suffolk County residents, New York State residents, just the public safety issues when it came to, bail reform and trying to get some rollbacks to happen to improve public safety again.
I think Lou spoke about that, about the Black Lives Matter campaign movement, and we really became public enemy number one, and nobody was sticking up for us. It was very easy to jump on that bandwagon of attacking the police. A lot of people had no idea what they were talking about, and they still, some people don't know what they're talking about, but I think that it was important to strike back against that.
Now, Lou, how do you see us continuing to grow? Because we've already been very much involved, and a lot of people don't always have, the forward thinking of what could be next. What do you see as being the next steps for us as far as growth?
So, first I got to give Tanner some credit. He's really done an incredible job of moving forward what myself and Bob Capitana and a few others started. So, it started with just a few dozen of us going out, maybe volunteering for a local legislator that was supportive of the police. And now, in the last 2 cycles, we had 1,600 appearances.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And you're talking about tens of thousands of doors that we've hit, and that really is under Tanner's leadership. It's tremendous how he's engaged the younger police officers, that generation. He has buy-in for them. And I always said that really is the critical component, is that when election night occurs, it should be like the Super Bowl. And it really is for our members in a lot of ways. Once they volunteer, they feel that they have skin in the game. They care about the outcome of these elections, and they should. I said it all the time. You may not like politics, you may not like politicians, but the outcome of these elections has an incredible effect on your life, on your job, on your pay, on your benefits, on how you're treated as a police officer. So getting that buy-in, that engagement from the membership is just been incredible. And, both yourself and Tanner have done such a great job of doing that. Where do we go from here? I think we keep growing it. What I would love to see in the future, not only to keep the machine running here and having us continue to be that strong voice we have here in Suffolk County, but to get buy-in really from across the state and from across the country. I compare us to the teachers quite often, and we can disagree with them on a number of things. But I remember during COVID with Biden in office, and Biden says at one point, yeah, kids are going back to school. And Randy Weingarten, the president of the teachers, says, no, they're not. And then the kids don't go back to school. So it's just the type of political power they have, because they're organized, at least on a national level, much more organized than we are as police officers. Now, there were big organizations out there that we're a part of, like NAPO and UCOPS, but it's something we need to work on more, just being a cohesive body, having a national voice. We should be doing what we do, that knocking on doors, that engaging with the public, that grassroots activism. We should be doing that as law enforcement officers from one side of this country to the other. And only then will we have a real voice for public safety, a real national voice to move that ball forward.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And if you just look at recent history, if we had that national voice, certain cases that police actions were taken out of context, like say Eric Gardner situation over in Missouri, CNN and some of the mainstream media ran with that narrative of hands up, don't shoot. And once the facts came out and the investigation continued, it was proven that hands up, don't shoot never actually happened.
Right.
And I think if we had that national presence, that national voice, some of those organizations may have been a little more hesitant to report a rumor rather than waiting for the facts to come out.
Right. One of the phrases I remember from college is that in a democracy, it matters who has the loudspeakers, right? So you can have something that was a blatant lie, like that hands up, don't shoot, and it just gets repeated so often that somehow the public just believes it. You had Obama repeating it well after it was proven to be false. So I think what's important there is that we invest in these alternate forms of media like we're doing right now here on a podcast, where we can actually talk directly to the public. We don't have to go through the filter of the local paper, of the local TV station, of the mainstream media, because here's the reality. And it's only really becoming, well known by the public, is that they lie to you, right? Yeah. I mean, plain and simple, the American public is lied to by the media, period, because their main goal, right, is selling papers and getting clicks at this point.
Making money.
Right, making money. That's it. It's the media business. It's a business. And if truth doesn't fit the business model, well, then truth is out the window. And that's just a sad reality. So more and more, I think Americans are turning to these ultimate forms of media, these long forms of media, where it's not a soundbite or a clip. It's an in-depth discussion where you can listen to something in long form and really decide for yourself. I think they're becoming critically important. And, for us in law enforcement, it's important that we stay with the times. It's another way of doing that door knock, where we were out there talking to people, in their homes, in their neighborhoods. But also, we should be talking to them every time they, pop open that phone to let them know what challenges we're facing as law enforcement officers, why it matters to them, what's going on in their neighborhoods. So I'm just, very grateful that you guys have started the show and that we're going to have that voice.
We're even stronger together with those coalitions like NAPO and UCOPS. I think it's a lot better to share information, to have it go back and forth, and to work together on a common goal. Although all our goals might not be the same, I think that a lot of times we're working to move stuff in the same direction.
Yeah, very often, we're all going to have the same national goals in mind. And a big part of that's going to be now you have a leadership role in NAPO and UCOPS, and hopefully it comes with more influence there to help these organizations sort of develop into the direction that, the model we've had locally, kind of build that nationally.
Yep, most certainly. And it's something I'm very interested in working with both those organizations on. I've spoken to the leadership at NAPO about maybe getting more involved in the social media. I'm a vice president for UCOPS. We took a leadership role there. We were the first national law enforcement organization to put out a statement in support of Kash Patel as director of the FBI. And I really think we moved the needle in order to get him confirmed. Again, just a critically important role for our country to make sure that we have an FBI that acts in a fair and impartial way, and in a way that has real priorities, not priorities about going after school board parents or trying to weaponize the justice system against political opponents, but an FBI, which is the lead law enforcement organization in the nation, that's laser focused on things like fentanyl, on drug cartels, on gang activity, because that's what matters to people that live here in Long Island. It's what matters to people that live across this country that want to be safe and want their kids not to be poisoned by these drugs coming into our nation. So, having a leadership role in these organizations give us that voice to affect public policy and public decisions as far as personnel.
Oh, absolutely. And with Kash Patel, for example, the guy's going to be running the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and for us to have an open dialogue with him and be able to put out an endorsement and support him, it's really going to help everybody locally too, because we're going to be able to have that dialogue when it comes to local issues and build partnerships with the federal government and give us more tools to be able to do our jobs to protect the people in Suffolk County.
Yeah, certainly. And I was able to chat with him, and what a down to earth guy. He's a Long Islander, born in or raised in Garden City. So he has Long Island roots. And he's somebody that wants to know what we need as local law enforcement. How can we in the FBI help you in local law enforcement complete your mission? What do you need as far as resources? What do you need as far as federal partnerships? So he was very, very interested in how the FBI and the federal government can assist us to protect the citizens of Suffolk County. So I think it's just incredibly important to keep those relationships and hopefully everybody be rowing in the same direction. When you see what we've had in the past where we're not allowed to coordinate with ICE, right, which is absolutely insane when you have local law enforcement organizations working against federal authorities trying to get rapists and murderers out of our country. It's just so out of touch with what should be, and it's almost unthinkable. It almost sounds like you made it up. Right.
It defies logic.
Correct.
We're all on the same team here. We all have the same common goal of trying to keep everybody safe, and they're making us work against each other. Right.
You have people who are sex offenders who are in this country illegally, and we can't work with ICE to get them out of our country. I mean, you think about how insane that is. So having that relationship with the federal government, making sure that we are rowing in the same direction as far as keeping people safe and getting the murderers, rapists, and gang members out of our country, again, incredibly important. And I am very happy that we're going to be moving in that direction with the Trump administration.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. as we talk about our relationships, with the federal, at the federal level, but we also have that with, the local district attorney. And the local district attorney has been very adamant about pursuing criminal charges and trying to keep bad guys off the streets too, which, isn't always the case elsewhere within New York State, right? We have DAs in Manhattan that it almost seems like they refuse to prosecute crimes at times. But our DA here is looking to back up the cops that are out there trying to do the job and actually prosecuting these crimes and trying to keep bad guys locked up.
Right. And it's not even almost. They outright say they will not prosecute crime. When Alvin Bragg took office, one of the first things he did was put out a memo that says, in these instances, I'm not going to prosecute people. He talked about robberies. Basically, he put out a memo that said you could put a gun to someone's head and I'm not going to prosecute you unless you pull the trigger. So, think about that in any walk of public service. Think about a fireman that says, hey, I'm going to pick and choose which fires I'm going to put out. You'd be out of a job very quickly. And it goes back to organization. When we talk about having a national voice and being nationally organized, like Alvin Bragg is the product of a national movement from the other side, right? From the George Soroses of the world. Here's a guy who is funding DAs who actively will not prosecute crime, and whatever end goal he might have there, whether it's destabilization of our government, of trying to push us into some sort of global world order, or whatever this end game is. The result is that your family and my family is put in danger by DAs like Alvin Bragg being put in place. And they're organized. They did it here. They did it in Manhattan. They did it over in LA with Gascon. Same playbook over and over. And if we're not organized to combat that, to say, hey, you're not going to destroy our communities, you're not going to let violent criminals walk out over and over again to commit the same crimes, well, then we're going to suffer, a very bad fate if we're not organized and able to put up a resistance to that sort of a thing.
It causes us to live in dysfunction, basically.
Yep, absolutely correct. And we stark contrast here in Suffolk County. So we have one of the best DAs in the nation in Ray Tierney. This is a guy who, embodies the word dedication. He advocates the law without favor or fear. It's not somebody that goes and, for political reasons, looks to make certain decisions. This is somebody who really cares about the people who live here in Suffolk County and wants it to be safe. And he has a difficult job because he lives in a woke state where the laws favor the criminals. So that's not easy for any DA to deal with, but he does an excellent job of it. And he partners with us in the Suffolk County PD, and we have a great working relationship together. And I will give him some credit above and beyond what a DA normally does. When he bumps into laws that are asinine, he doesn't just give up. I know he's been up in Albany trying to change some of the things that are just really insane, like our fentanyl laws, where you need enough fentanyl to kill a football stadium full of people to be able to hold someone on bail. And that's just the reality of the law here in New York State. But I know Ray has been up to Albany talking to everyone who will listen, right up until the governor's office, to say that these sorts of things need to change.
Yeah, and it's been good for us to partner with him in a lot of that movement too. We've sent members up to Albany with Ray Tierney to advocate for Chelsea's law. We've been involved in other press conferences to speak up about the dangers of fentanyl and xylazine. And we're at a point now where just about every family in Suffolk County has been touched by the opioid crisis. Everybody knows somebody who's been battling addiction or has succumbed to an overdose. It's something that really affects everybody here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been great to see him lead that fight. And we're very proud to be in that fight with him in order to strengthen these laws to protect our children. When you look at the history of the opioid crisis, it was all about money. It was manufactured by these pharmaceutical companies who were asking you what your pain was, 1 to 10, right? And the more they hit that 10 mark, the more money they made. And now they've left this carnage in their wake. And now we've moved from that into this whole fentanyl crisis, and we're left to deal with it. So we need stronger laws. We need criminals to be held accountable. We need criminal pharmaceutical companies to be held accountable for their actions. Some of the questions that you might ask is, why does nobody go to jail for this stuff, right? Like, why we give the companies some fine, usually a lot less than they made for selling this poison and pushing this poison and knowing it was addictive. They pay the fine and they move on rather than somebody ending up in handcuffs. But that's what we're left to deal with. That's why it's important that we partner with our prosecutors, partner with our community, educate the community, and work together to combat this crisis.
And as cops, we see the same people all the time suffering from this. So it's really sad to watch. So it's good that he's working on that, and we're working with him.
Yeah, trying to come to some common sense solutions and really help everybody.
Right. Yeah. So can we all agree that fentanyl is bad?
I think we can.
It's common sense.
Right.
And to have ever gotten to this point, it just, again, I'm going to use the same words I used earlier, but it defies logic. Nobody should want to live in a situation like this.
Right. You have certain elements in the state Senate and the Assembly that are just so fanatical that they can't even get to a place where they say, hey, we need a law for fentanyl that protects children. Right. Like even that's bad. We're going to prosecute drug dealers who put this poison out there and then kill somebody, by virtue of putting the poison on our streets. They don't even want to hold them accountable. So that's how fanatical some of the leaders are in Albany. And that's where we really need community education to show who is responsible for these reckless laws and to really hold them accountable on Election Day.
Yeah. So, we started talking about, and we got, not that we got sidetracked, but we kind of took it into the political spectrum. But we were talking a little bit about your history and your rise up through the PBA and how you started basically our political movement as a delegate. After you became trustee in the 5th, what other kind of roles did you take on?
Trustee, it's probably the most important job in the PBA. So you're assigned to a precinct. Everybody in that precinct or command is your responsibility, and every problem they have is yours, whether that is problems with the day-to-day work life, whether it's problems with mental health, whether it's a challenge with alcohol, all the things that police officers face, and the stresses of this job, the challenges that they put in front of you, the trustee gets involved with those. They are the heart of that support network. They are there when, police officers, everybody, you have this idea that we're somehow superhuman in many ways, but we're not. We see a lot of bad in the world. We have the same challenges when it comes to alcohol with domestic issues as everyone else in the world. But it's compounded because, you may have a fight with your spouse, and then when you go to work, you're handling a domestic issue for some other person, or some other people. So it becomes increasingly challenging to have that support network that can connect you to the proper resources, to mental health resources, to things here in the PBA that we offer to assist our police officers. And being a trustee, you're always on call. So if a member has an issue day or night, if God forbid they get in a critical incident where they have to defend themselves, if they're having an issue at home, if they're having an issue at 3 a.m. because they're a midnight person at work, that trustee is on call, will respond out, will give that police officer everything that they need. So very challenging job, one I did for quite some time. And I tell you, my hat's off to our trustees because we have an excellent group of trustees right now that I know go above and beyond for our members.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you touched on mental health and, battles with alcohol abuse. And we've been doing a lot here to try to really improve and build our peer team. And, it's one of those things where, it's a service that's to our members, and a lot of the public doesn't necessarily see this, but even our peer support for our members is a public service in that we're trying to maintain the mental health of the people that are responding to your problems. We're trying to make it so that our cops are as comfortable as possible and mentally capable of handling anything when they go out there, but it's a difficult task.
Most certainly. And we're just about a little bit past the 1-year anniversary of the suicides that we had. So we had 2 suicides here in the Suffolk County PD. We had 4 overall in Suffolk County law enforcement last year, and just so terribly tragic, horrific for the families. And it's something that we need to do more for. So we need to do more for officer mental health. We can't rest on our laurels. We have to make more resources available. One of the things that I'd like to get done is a mental health bill of rights, because I think that is a huge impediment to officers seeking help. So if you're an officer who has felt the effects of trauma, maybe you're here 15, 20 years, maybe you saw some things that you never should have seen as a human being, those things compound and they build. But if you reach out to for help and say, I need, psychological help, I need help with alcohol, all of a sudden, there are punitive things that happen, right? You have a job that's worried about liability, and the job may punish you in the form of taking your gun away, limiting your ability to do overtime. And some of those things are appropriate in those cases. But what we need is a roadmap to that person that's asking for help. Like, well, how do I get back? How do I get back to work? How do I know that if I come forward and ask for that help, that I'm not going to lose my job? That there is a road, there is a support network to get me back to a full duty officer, a mentally healthy person. So it's something that we need to work on. I think every department should have a mental health bill of rights for their officers. Right now, we don't have one. I know that County Executive Romaine has been very supportive of the idea, and I'm hoping it's something that we can address sometime in the future.
Yeah, that'd be great to have an actual game plan for cops who are battling with something, to know that they're not just going to be punished. They're not just going to be, have their gun and ability to work overtime taken away, but there's going to be an actual path to building back up as a human, right? Overcoming these mental obstacles and issues, and also getting back to that normal way of life.
Yeah, certainly. And we have to talk about how we remove the stigma, how we get people to reach out for that help, or maybe even to go for therapeutic help on a regular basis, whether or not you're reaching a crisis, right? Just get guys out on an annual basis to talk to somebody, to work through things. If we go back to when I started, or even before, there's this stigma around asking for any sort of help. And we really need to get away from that. We need to break it. We need to know that we're not superhuman, that we do have the support network, this blue family here to move us forward, that we all go through the same things. I mean, that's good for the police officer. That's good for the public, because you don't want the officer that's coming to your front door to be in the middle of his own mental health crisis. That's something that the public has an investment in, and it's something that we need to certainly invest resources in.
Have you been working with the other police unions and getting something done, or is this more of...
Yes. I think this is something that is ubiquitous. It transcends any one particular department. I know Nassau PBA, Tommy Shevlin, he has really done a lot of work in this. He spearheaded their counseling program there. He has pushed for a mental health bill up in Albany that would give us certain rights, as police officers who are also engaging in mental health counseling. So, it's another critical component, is to get some legislation passed that would help us establish a mental health program statewide. So it's something that we all hold very dearly, because we've all lost people. We've all lost officers. I can tell you, from my time starting, I can't tell you how many friends I've lost to the scourge of suicide after 25 years. And you never want to see another one. And it's something that we all need to continue to work on and hopefully make some headway on.
So beyond the state movement and trying to get a state bill passed, is there anything we could do federally? Like, is this something that a UCOPS or a NAPO could help with some sort of federal guidelines, a federal bill that would encompass everybody?
I think so. It's someplace that we work with our congressmen, and we have some great congressmen here in Suffolk County. We have Congressman Nick LaLota, who truly supports police officers and backs the blue. Congressman Garbarino. So it's something we've had some conversation about, not only the mental health side of it, but just a police officer bill of rights. Mm-hmm. When Lee Zeldin was in Congress, he had actually authored a bill. Unfortunately, we were never able to get it passed. But it's something that is critically needed in this nation. There is a recruitment and retention crisis across this country. As you just saw here in New York State, you have correction officers that just walked off the job because conditions are that dismal at this point. They're punching bags. The Holt Act was a disaster where, you limit their ability to put people in solitary confinement. They can sexually assault prison guards, and it's a tinderbox waiting to happen. Similarly in policing, you've seen police officers treated as punching bags, right? And that has happens across this nation as well. So people are moving more and more away from the job. We were the premier police job in the country, right? Where we used to get 40,000 people take our test to become Suffolk County police officers. Where our last test, we were about 13,000, right? Just a bit over. So it's, almost 2/3 dropped off. You keep going in that direction and you're going to go off a cliff. You have to do something to make these jobs more attractive. The job has become harder than ever before. We have body cameras where every minute of every day is under some sort of scrutiny. You have police officers being villainized and demonized. You have this false narrative that we're all racist, right? You have the challenges that have been done legislatively, where they've created these new pension tiers, where new police officers are being cheated out of a fair retirement. They're getting less, far less than the generations that came before them. You have us paying into our healthcare. So all of those things need to be addressed in terms of recruitment and retention. And I can tell you that County Executive Romaine is very aware of that. And we've been in contract negotiations. And I know it's something that he seeks to address, investing in our future, investing in public safety, making sure that we remain one of the safest counties in the nation by having a professional police force. And it's something he places a priority on. Yeah,
and I think the media has played a large role in that, too, the way they've been portraying police officers the last 15, 20 years. Young men and women that are now entering the workforce haven't necessarily grown up wanting to be cops like we did growing up. We grew up playing cops and robbers. Young people today entering the workforce have just seen negative spins on CNN, MSNBC, a lot of the mainstream media sources. And like we touched on earlier, a lot of it is just fallacies, and they're racing to get the first story out. It doesn't necessarily have to be the right story. And that's been a huge problem. And we're seeing, these are the effects of it.
Most certainly. I grew up watching Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, where cops were heroes of the story, right? Now, if you turn on a movie now, you're going to see things that just portray police as the villain, police as racist. You're seeing the Training Days of the world, where we're out there, stopping people and shaking them down. So the culture has shifted a great deal to make police enemy number one. And then you have the lies in the media, like the hands up, don't shoot, where it was absolutely false, that push that lie. And, that's kind of what's in the zeitgeist. It's that police officers are this occupying army. We're too militaristic. It's just nothing could be further from the truth. They take a fraction of a percent of police officers that do the wrong thing, and they try to make that representative of the majority. And I know, after being here for 25 years, that police, by and large, do an incredible job, an impossible job, and they do it well.
And we were under a consent decree, and we've done all these sorts of studies on police interactions here in Suffolk County. And a study recently just came out again that showed there was no racial bias in the traffic stops Suffolk police were conducting. Meanwhile, if you look back 10 years, everybody was saying that Suffolk cops were racist. Suffolk cops are targeting Black people, targeting minorities. But the study of the actual traffic stop shows there was no pattern of that anywhere.
Right. Yeah. The study did show that, and yet you still have the race hustlers out there that, will lie to anyone that wants to listen to them and try to spin this, that no, even though the study says this, the study was wrong because of X, Y, and Z. It's nonsense. The reality is that a lot of people have monetized this whole racial division. They want to sow racial division, not just here in Suffolk County, but across the country. And they want the working class divided, and they use that to line their own pockets. And it's a grift. It's a scam. And that's why it's important that the working class and labor stay united. We can't be divided along cultural lines. We can't be divided based on a lie, which is exactly what it is. I stress all the time with our members that we're not just law enforcement, we are labor. We are labor. We have a hell of a lot in common with a guy who swings a hammer. Plain and simple. This is a union town. This is law enforcement, labor. And it's something that has elevated our members to be able to make decent wages, decent salaries. We have a tremendous amount in common with the union movement. And we should not allow these, people in society who seek to divide us to do it.
Yeah, and you're the kind of guy that walks the talk too. We were just standing there elbow to elbow with IBEW Group 1049 as they're in this contract dispute with National Grid.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we will stand shoulder to shoulder with them, as they did with us during the Constitutional Convention when labor from around this state, came together and coalesced and voted that down, because there was an opportunity there for some very powerful, wealthy people to rip open our pension system and gut our pensions, which would have been a boon to the wealthy class. It would have been a huge transfer of wealth, just like we've seen recently with COVID. And we were able to stop that in this state because of organized labor. So I was incredibly proud to stand with them. They're not asking for anything unreasonable. They're asking for fair wages and healthcare. Healthcare, the ability to take your family member to the doctor and not go bankrupt. Healthcare is an absolute scam in this country. We know a lot about criminals, and the healthcare system is a criminal enterprise in many cases, where the people are taken advantage by insurance companies, by drug companies, by these very large, corporations that see you as a number. And it's something that as labor, we need to push back on and say that, hey, healthcare is a right. We've bargained for it. We work hard. We go to work. We need to be able to have access to affordable healthcare. And that's what Local 1049 is fighting for. And we will stand in that fight with them.
Yeah, and speaking of healthcare, over the last 15, 16 months since we all came into our roles, you hit the ground running and you settled a healthcare deal that covers every Suffolk County employee.
Yes. Yeah. And for me, that was a priority. So I know how important healthcare is. I've sat on the healthcare committee, MHP, here in Suffolk County. I think we do it right here in Suffolk County. We work collectively with management to keep the costs down, but also to deliver the best healthcare to our members. So we have a healthcare plan where it's management, the county, and labor that make the decision on what's paid for and what's not. So in a traditional plan where you're paying an insurance premium, the insurance company makes the decisions. So if your son or daughter needs life-saving care, if they, God forbid, have cancer, and the insurance company comes in and says, oh, wait, this is a high-cost claim. That experimental cancer treatment is going to cost $1 million. The company comes in and shuts it down. Oh, it's experimental. So sorry, you can't have it. That doesn't happen here in Suffolk County because labor and management get together and say, no, your child is going to get that treatment because this is our money. We're self-funded. We pay for it and we can make that decision. And at the same time, we keep the cost of healthcare down, right? So for the taxpayer, it's an incredible bargain as compared to what's paid by some of these other plans where you have the insurance companies, with their hands deep into the pockets of the people paying the premiums. Here we work together, we keep costs down, but at the same time we deliver quality healthcare.
It's not backbreaking to the worker or the taxpayer, really, is what you're bringing it down to. Oh,
it's more than that. The taxpayer is actually getting a better deal than they would if we were paying traditional premiums. We're able to put guardrails in place where we're able to see where the scams are. When we take a look at if we see bad actors out there, if we see a chiropractor that's overbuilding the plan, we get right on it. With some of the GLP-1s, we were able to put guardrails in place. So, what the drug companies want now is lifetime customers, right? So they poison our food. And then as you, start to get sicker and more unhealthy and obese, now they have a pill that'll solve that problem for you. And then they'll keep you on that pill for the rest of your life. So whereas we wanted to make these drugs available to our members, we also wanted to have healthy outcomes for them. That really is the important part. So when we make the GLP-1s, the Ozempics, and the Wegovys available, we've also put in something in place that says if you're going to do this, you also have to see a nutritionist and you have to weigh in on this digital scale that we're going to send you. And we have these chat groups that you can jump in to help you and, craft your exercise routine. And you're going to have to do all these things if you want this drug, because the goal should be to get you off that drug and get you into a healthy lifestyle. Now that is good for the plan because ultimately it saves the plan.
Cost effective, yeah.
Exactly, right. Because you're getting off that $1,500 a month drug, and onto an exercise routine, but it's also good for the member because the member is getting a healthier lifestyle. They're going to have better mental health and they're getting off the drug, which may have unknown side effects going into the future.
That's good for mental health as well, too.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes along with the model we were talking about trying to build for mental health. It's a roadmap to a healthier lifestyle. And we want to try to build that with mental health as well, a real roadmap to a better outcome for everybody.
Yes, most certainly. And I think there has been a cultural shift in our job too. Whereas when I came on, you might see ashtrays in the car and guys smoking and more dependency on alcohol. I think that shifted quite a bit with the younger generation. You know, when I see you guys coming up, everybody's in shape, everybody's exercising. You're more likely to find them in a gym than a bar. Which is a great thing.
In the gym, so that makes us have to get there. We can't. He's busy enough, but he still gets there. So.
Well, that's good for my mental health. That's my mental health session in the gym every day, and I have young kids, so I want to be around as long as I can for them, and hopefully enjoy my retirement whenever that comes. So it is important, but I'm happy to see that it is being adopted certainly by our younger guys and girls.
Now, with the health care being countywide, every county employee, multiple unions. Is there any talk of developing mental health into that kind of program where we're involved with all the other unions in the county and it's some sort of program that helps and affects everybody?
Yes, and in fact, when we met with the county, we met as a group. So all 9 unions here in Suffolk County, all the law enforcement unions, AME, and their president, Dan Leveler, who does a great job, the college. So it's something that we're trying to work on collectively because it affects all walks of life.
Yeah, of course.
It's certainly a bit more at the forefront for law enforcement because of all the things we see. Mental health issues really come up, quite a bit. But there's no job here in Suffolk County which is not affected by mental health, no matter where you work and what you do. So it's important that we do that together. And we've worked on the healthcare together. So the way we established this healthcare system was as a committee of union scope in Suffolk County. And it really is the collective. Without having all the unions on board and working together, we would not have the great healthcare that we have. It would be something totally different. And I can tell you, Dan Leveler over in AME has done such a fantastic job with the healthcare, certainly has supported my efforts and the efforts of all the unions to get the healthcare done. Because whether you're a crossing guard or you're a Suffolk County police officer, doesn't make a difference. You're getting that same excellent healthcare. So it's important that we all work together because we all deserve access to good medical care.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all part of the labor movement. Like you said it earlier, we're not just cops, we're part of the labor movement. And we're out there helping every working man and woman who's employed by the county.
Correct. And we know as police officers that we couldn't do our job without the dispatchers, without the administrative staff, without the PDAs. I mean, they support us in our role as law enforcement, and the job just wouldn't get done without them. So we're grateful for what they do. We support them. We certainly support AME and its mission to make sure that they get the best pay and benefits possible. And working together on the healthcare has marked success. Like I said, I think we are one of the best plans in the nation in terms of the quality of the care that we're able to deliver, but also in terms of keeping it fair to the taxpayer and keeping the costs down.
Yeah. And we've talked about how you've hit the road running. You secured the healthcare for all the county employees, but you've also secured some legislative changes that have benefited working men and women throughout the state. And it wasn't just us, but we did play a major part in getting some tier reform this year. And, maybe you could just speak a little bit on how it finally occurred that we got some tier reform that helps every employee within the state.
Yeah, it really was a collective effort by labor. So we're involved in these law enforcement coalitions, but we're also involved in coalitions of all public employees. So we're, for instance, a member of PEC, right, the Public Employee Conference, where we all face these very similar issues when it comes to these tiers. These tiers were a racket. They were rammed down labor's throat. Before the ink was dry on one tier, they were passing another one, reducing retirement benefits. And it was all done in the name of, we can't afford. We're in the middle of a housing crisis, and the public employee has to do their part while everyone else is suffering. Well, lo and behold, once the crisis was over and we recovered from the mortgage crisis, we never went back and switched any of the tiers, right? It's just the public employee is still taking it on the chin with these reduced benefits. Part of the reason you take these jobs, in fact, probably one of the major reasons you take this job, is to have a fair retirement. We could go into the private sector and try to make a lot of money, working in Wall Street somewhere, or seek some, boy, you're never going to get rich, being in the public sector, right? You can make a pretty decent living here on Long Island. but you're not going to be wealthy, right? And part of the trade-off for that is that you're going to have a safe and secure retirement. They're robbing our new generations of that. As they're out risking their lives, dealing with more challenges than ever before, they're getting less than their predecessors. So it was incredibly important for us to work towards changing that, to start to make Tier 6 look a little bit more like Tier 2. So I'm in Tier 2. I don't pay into my pension, so the employer picks up the cost as far as my intention. If I'm out here risking my life for 25, 30 years, I get that safe and secure retirement. Now, the newer employees are paying upwards of 6%, which is a big chunk of salary. Imagine taking a 6% cut in your wages, and they get less, right? So the way their pension is calculated is changed. It's a reduced benefit. So starting to make incremental change on that was very important for us. I had the opportunity to meet with the governor not so long ago, and that's one of the major things that I discussed with her, is how we need to change this. And if you want to solve this recruitment crisis, then you need to make some changes and be fair to the new people coming on the job. So I'm happy to say that working collectively together with the other law enforcement unions and with labor here in the state, we were able to make some changes. We were able to change the vesting period. We were able to make a tweak also to how it's calculated, right? Where it used to be a longer calculation and a reduced benefit. Now that calculation looks a lot more like Tier 2, where there's that 3-year calculation and 2-year look back. So it's starting to change, but we need to do more. That contribution rate, it should be zero contribution. It's way too much as it stands, and it's when you start the job, you're already on the lower scale of the wages, and that's when they're kind of hitting you the hardest. So we need to roll that contribution rate back as far as we can, and we need to continue that work together.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the coalitions like PCNY and PEC, because we were talking about healthcare earlier and how we negotiate collectively as a group of county employees. Some of the other county leaders are in those groups as well. Like Dan Levlar is on the board of PEC, and it's got to be helpful to be able to have those discussions locally. We live in the same areas, and you're working for the same goals on a bigger scale up at the state.
Yeah, most certainly. Working together is critically important, and it's important to have a presence in Albany. So we send a full-time lobbyist, Chris Wolf, he is a police officer. We send him up to Albany quite often in order to advocate on our behalf for issues just like this, issues around pension tiers, issues around 50A, which puts officers in danger by releasing all of this information. Issues around public safety like bail reform. So we have that advocate. We invest in it. We send him up there quite often to be talking to our elected officials and really let them know what we need as law enforcement officers to help make the job better and keep the public safer.
Yeah, I think Chris is one of the more under-recognized values that we have in this organization. And I don't think he gets the credit he deserves from our membership and really working men and women throughout the state, period.
Yeah, they don't really see what he does. I mean, he's very involved in PCNY. He does a lot for us up there, so he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Right. But besides from yourself, Tanner, which all the electeds know you because of the work you do and you spearhead our PAC efforts here. But the state electeds, they all know Chris. They all know him by first name because he is on there. He's pounded on their door. He's letting them know what the officers need here, what our new generations need, what the challenges are. So he is an incredible advocate to have up there. And he works with PCNY. So PCNY is that umbrella organization that represents many police across the whole state. And he is a leader in that organization and trying to, secure us better laws to make this job better and to help us complete our police mission.
Yeah, and what's great about that too is it's ever evolving. And one of the things that PCNY has started putting together is that union leader dinner we just attended. And, it was great to have, because a lot of the unions send up the lobbyists and the lobbyists see each other all the time, but it's an opportunity for the presidents and the executive boards to get together and get to know each other, discuss different issues we're having, maybe game plans going forward, and just building on what we already have and trying to expand upon it.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible opportunity. It's the only way we're going to coordinate in any significant level is if the principals meet. So that dinner was a critical thing. It's the second year we've done it. And you can see what we did last year in some of the state races. So last year, we had Stacey Pfeffer Amato, who sits on a committee that affects our pensions. And she's been excellent as far as advocating for our rights and benefits. So she was in a very competitive race, way out of our jurisdiction. You know, we're all the way out here in Suffolk County. She's over in Queens, right, over in the Cross Bay, Rockaway, Howard Beach area. And New York City PBA was supporting her. PCNY was supporting her. We certainly had a great relationship for her. So we came together as a coalition. We actually chartered a bus and we got 50 of our members to come out and support Stacey. But when we showed up, there were hundreds of police officers there, hundreds. And I know for certain that we made the difference in that race. And I know that she's there fighting for us and fighting for, better conditions as far as those tiers. So something like that, coordination at that level is really something that we need to continue to do and continue to expand upon.
Yeah, it's great to be able to feel effective when we go out and do those sorts of efforts, because we definitely moved the needle on that race. In her previous race, she just barely won. It was very close.
It was like less than 20 votes. And this time around, it was over 800 votes she won by.
Yeah,
so
that's an incredible difference.
Yeah, and having coalitions like that made a huge difference.
Yeah, well, it makes a difference to people. You know, Stacey is a Democrat. They are in power in the state, whether we like it or not. And I think people especially in that part of Queens, tend to lean pretty Republican conservative. And having the endorsement and backing of law enforcement certainly made a difference in that race. You know, and it's important to have people in the majority helping us. And don't get me wrong, we have a ton of great Republicans. And in fact, most of the state representatives that we support here in Suffolk County are Republicans, but we need friends on both sides of the aisle, right? This is a bipartisan system. I always say if you want a one-party system, well, then you should, go move to China, right? So we have to engage with both parties. We have to get our voice heard in both parties, and that's why things like that are so important.
Yeah, it's, and one of the things that's important to think about too is if you look at our endorsement sheet year to year, it's never party based. Like Tanner always brings up, it's candidate based. We bring the candidates in, we screen them, we get to know what their actual goals and objectives are, and we make educated choices on what's best for our membership and the public safety and law enforcement as a whole.
We're looking for the best candidates for law enforcement. And that's really, it doesn't matter what party you're from, Republican, conservative, Democrat. If you align with our views as law enforcement and labor, that's usually where we go with. So we've had good relationships formed with a lot of different politicians.
Yes, certainly, on both sides of the aisle. For us, the relationship is critically important. One of the things I do as a president is, I prioritize people that have our backs, right? Because if you walk away from people that have had your back and be good for you, then your word is really worth nothing. So if we have an incumbent that has supported us, supported our issues, we're going to go with that incumbent for the most part. But that doesn't mean we're not willing to make a relationship with the challenger or with both sides. We've had challengers come in and, they screened excellent. And we told them, if you're successful, we'd be very happy to have a rapport and a relationship, but we're not going to walk away from somebody because, somebody else comes in saying the things we want to hear. If you have that proven track record, we are going to stand by you again and again. Now, if you're someone that villainizes police officers, or maybe you say all the right things, but when it comes time to vote, you abandon us, well, in that case, then we're going to go against you and we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that our police officers' voices are heard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just what you're saying out in the public, what hits the newspapers, but the voting records are public too. And we definitely watch voting records, how certain candidates vote on bills that we're supporting or affect us.
Yeah. And this is, again, I'll sing Tanner's praises. Our members vote, right? We're one of the few unions that track if our members vote or not. So on election day, we know if you voted, if you filled out an absentee, we know that. We know that if you went to the polls, we're taking you out of our universe, and we'll be calling our members. We have volunteers here that sit at the phones all day long calling our members to make sure that they turn out and vote. And overwhelmingly, they do. So they turn out to vote themselves. They get their families to vote. They get their friends to vote. Like I said, it's because they have skin in the game. Once they come out and volunteer, once they knock on a few doors and feel like, they're a part of this race, well, then they're doing all those things. They're going to show up on Election Day. And that's, again, it's been a critical piece of our success.
Now, we've had success in the past. We've definitely built something strong that we're all very proud of. But what do you? I know we talked a little bit about the national organizations we're parts of, but how do you see a roadmap to building those up? Like, what sort of ideas do you have as far as we already have an influence within the state, but really building it more nationally and getting more involved in maybe some of those national races?
Yeah, I think it comes down to engaging with our larger umbrella organizations like NAPO and UCOPS. I think, we need to get more involved there. We need to have our voice heard. Leveraging social media has become incredibly important. I think that gives us more of a national voice. So I think it was last month we had over 1 million views on our collective social media, which means people care about what we're saying. They're engaged with our content. Getting that out there becomes very important. Working with our federal partners like Congressman Lilota, we will be out there supporting. Again and again, I think he's doing a tremendous job. And I think you see people trying to weaponize nonsense against him. 6 protesters show up in front of his office. Meanwhile, he's fighting for Long Island. He's fighting to get the SALT restored. He's fighting for our police. So it's important that we support people like that who are going to do those bills, those police officer safety bills, who are going to get us the federal, resources and money we need to be able to buy the equipment we need to protect the public. So working with those partners on the federal level and certainly working within those larger unions to have a collective voice, it's something that we will place a priority on in the future.
Yeah, I know we got some criticism for getting involved in presidential endorsements, but, it was pretty clear which candidate supported police more over the other. And it was pretty clear over President Trump's first term that he was willing to give more resources to local police departments, making sure we get some of those tools handed down from the feds. So it's great that we're more involved with those federal elections, even though we got some criticism for it.
Yeah, I was incredibly proud to support President Trump. The 2 candidates could not have been further apart when it comes to public safety and law enforcement. You had one candidate that was bailing out people who rioted and burned down precincts, right? Or at least encouraging her followers to do so. On the other hand, you had President Trump, who we had known, he was in the fight with MS-13 with us, getting us the federal resources we needed, came here to Long Island, stood shoulder to shoulder with us right here at Brentwood, Suffolk Community College, and made sure that we had what we needed to get the job done as far as these violent gangs. Since then, he's been completely supportive of law enforcement. I think we're seeing a return to law and order. I think we're going to see those federal resources and funds flow back. I think we're going to see more coordination between us and ICE, which is critical. It's critical to cutting off fentanyl. It's critical to getting the gang problem under control. So I think the more coordination we see with the Trump administration and certainly with our federal partners, the better off the public is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It just goes towards, again, if we have that relationship and we sort of be a model for other police organizations in other areas, hopefully it just strengthens law enforcement as a whole throughout the nation.
Oh, most certainly. I think we're going to see the pendulum swing in terms of law enforcement. Public safety has been really the number one issue, and not just the last election, but really the last few. We've seen they can't run away from that defund the police narrative quick enough, right? Everybody who was a defund the police person, suddenly no longer is, because it didn't take long to realize when you defund the police, what happens, right? Now you're getting pushed in front of a subway train, we're lit on fire.
Chaos. Yeah.
Right, exactly right. When do you see people being set on fire on a subway train, right? So this is how much we've devolved. And people aren't stupid. You can lie to them, but only for so long. And people have woken up to the fact that we need police, that police do a great job, and that defunding the police was probably one of the most asinine things that anyone ever came up with.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things that people feel in their day-to-day life is the general quality of life, right? Yeah, you don't want to be driving down the street and seeing graffiti everywhere. You don't want to be going for a bike ride with your kids and witness a robbery on Main Street. You want to be able to have the police have the tools to do our jobs.
Right. Absolutely correct. And, our slogan here at the Suffolk PBA is "We're your neighbors protecting your neighborhood," because by and large, most of us live here. Right. So we have a vested interest. We care. We care about that person walking into Target and stealing a shopping cart full of stuff. Right. We care about the person who's harassing you as you walk into ShopRite. We care about whether or not the local subway is going to be held up. So we have a vested interest. I think our members go above and beyond because of that. We really are your neighbors protecting your neighborhood. And we vote. We make sure that we elect candidates that put a priority on public safety and give us the tools we need to do our jobs and keep this county safe.
Our members are really invested in that as well. As you said, we live here, so it does matter.
Yeah, and all three of us have prior time in the New York City Police Department. And I know, in my almost 9 years in New York City, I was always a fairly active cop. I always did my job the right way. But when I finally came out here to Suffolk and was working where I live, where I grew up, where I'm now raising my children, there's just another aspect to it. Like this is home. This is a whole nother level of pride and a whole nother level of wanting to maintain what I grew up with for my children.
Right. Exactly right. And we serve in so many other walks of life. If you look at our members and where they're volunteering in the ambulance corps, right. They're volunteer firefighters. They're coaching like you do Siege with your kids, know. That's the police officer. So when you see that coach out there, there's a good chance that they're going to be a police officer. When you call that medic, and many of our members are medics, right? So that's something that much of the public might not know. But here in Suffolk County, unlike many other jurisdictions, we're not only police officers, but we're EMTs.
Right.
And in some cases, we have that heightened paramedic status where we can do so much more to save your family member or you. God forbid you have that medical emergency. So we serve a lot of roles here. We live here. We're invested in the community. We care about the community. And, again, I'm just incredibly proud to represent the members and women of this department.
Yeah, well, you've been doing a great job so far. I know it's, you hit the ground running. I know I keep saying it, but I think you've really impressed a lot of people with how much you've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time so far. And I think we all look forward to the continued success and what you can accomplish going forward over the next, decade or however much longer you work.
Well, thank you. And I'd love to take the credit, but the credit really belongs to you guys, first to the board and to the delegates. You guys do a tremendous job and you're incredibly supportive and enable me to do what I do. But then the members, that really is the engine that runs this union. So the strength of any union comes from its members. And our members are just so incredibly engaged. Like I said, they are out there. They're talking to the public. They're letting the public know why you should support this person or that person, why it's important to invest in public safety, what the critical issues are. So to have a membership that's out there, 1,600 of our members out there knocking on doors here in Suffolk County, or that will get on a bus and drive to Cross Bay Boulevard over in Howard Beach to support an issue. I could not be more fortunate or blessed, and that's where the true credit deserves to be, is to those members who are out there working, supporting this union.
Yeah, amen to that. I know we talk about it all the time with the PAC turnouts. It's a really impressive thing to see what we
Yeah,
what we
it
have
really
here.
Again, it starts from the top. Though I know our guys deserve a lot of credit, but everybody sees you out there and they see you all the time, so it's a lot. Thank you, Lou.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
So do you have any parting words, anything else you want to talk about, any messages to the public or the membership that you want to get out there?
Just a thank you to the public. So, incredibly fortunate to work here in Suffolk County. I can tell you, even during the height of the anti-police movement, people were, buying our members coffee or just stopping by and dropping some stuff at a precinct and just saying, hey, officer, don't believe the nonsense that you see on TV. We have your back. We support you. So the public here in Suffolk County is incredible. We have just such a wonderful community that is so supportive of our police officers. And I'd just like to say thank you.
Yeah, it's a great message. And the public can always follow us on social media, our Facebook, our Instagram. We have the YouTube channel up, and you can follow us on all sort of public safety issues, stuff that we're trying to get out in front of and what we're trying to change throughout the state and the country.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Lou.
Appreciate it.